Our next speaker, somewhat disarmingly, acknowledges he was a research skeptic. And in planning the conference, I have conference calls with all the speakers. And this was the most engaging of the lot, I think. And in his quite remarkable journey, he's turned from being a skeptic to someone who's won the support of the C-suite. So how did it happen? What did he do? We'll find out. Please meet John McLaren, Corporate Director of Communications, AkzoNobel.
Measurement, is it just for wimps? Well, ambitious wimps. That's me, AkzoNobel. Now, it's traditional to start a presentation with telling you who you are, which seems fair enough. AkzoNobel is a Fortune 500 company. We are the biggest manufacturer of paints, chemicals, performance coatings. You don't care. Why should you? You might buy one of our brands. If you're a Brit, you'll buy Dulux. And if you think of Dulux, you'll probably think of that big shaggy dog. When AkzoNobel 5 or 6 years ago bought ICI, a bellwether of British industry, one of the first questions we were advised to have to handle is, what are you going to do with the shaggy dog? And of course, needless to say, when the announcement was made, the Daily Mail, the biggest selling tabloid in the United Kingdom, the second biggest website in the world, asked us, what are you going to do about the shaggy dog? So I got my then boss, who's now the chairman of Heineken and Shell, to hug a big shaggy dog, which was in all the newspapers. Job done. They didn't talk about ROI. There was no reputation measurement. It was my fat Dutch boss hugging a big, fat, hairy English dog. Bonus. We're humans. We do stuff. We think stuff. We react. You met your partner, hopefully, because you just liked them. There was something chemical, the sense of humor. I like your shoes. I like your aftershave. It's a very fine credit card you've got there. You know, we are motivated by different things, but we are just connectors. Now, I've been in this game nearly 30 years. And in Washington, in Brussels, in London, I've worked for Rupert Murdoch, remember him? I've been all over the place. And one thing I have discovered, that if you want to be listened to, you've got to be trusted. In fact, it's exactly like a relationship. If a person likes you and they value your judgment, they begin to like having you around. Hey, John, what do you think of this? That's your access to the people upstairs. If you build an internal reputation that people suddenly think, oh, he's clever, he's wise, he knows how this works. If you've got them through a crisis, or a takeover, or a firing, any one of those things that happens every day in a big corporation, then people will gravitate towards you. And if you can combine that with some rudimentary charm and decent aftershave, then you've got a good career. People won't be repelled by you. Now, of course, you could machine gun them with a bunch of statistics why they should like you. But to go back to the analogy of how you met your partner, at any stage in the foreplay, did you hand over a CV? Hey, cop a load of that. Oh, look at your pension plan. Of course you didn't. They got to like you because you went out on a few dates. You went to the movies. You tried that first holiday abroad. Some of you might have had that second holiday abroad. You're going places. It's empathy, it's connection, it's trust. And it's the same in the corporation. It's the same in the real world. It's the same with the NGOs. And now, why did I say that nobody cares about AkzoNobel? Because nobody does care about AkzoNobel, except very few people. Our suppliers, our employees, our potential employees. We're a chemical company, so the NGOs, of course, are very interested in us. But in the massive growth of social media and citizen journalists, or bores in bungalows, as I call it, you've really got to begin to define who's interested in you and begin to accept that lots of people aren't. DEFRA can kill themselves to death by trying to find out what people think about them. Save the money, go to the pub. Bloody government. There's nothing they can do to swing that. Successful politicians, do you mind if I mention Tony Blair? He's not everybody's favourite person at the moment, but Tony Blair's breakthrough was, I'm an ordinary bloke. Actually, he went to one of Scotland's best public schools. He was the son of a doctor. He went to Oxford. He's as posh as you could throw a stick at. But Tony Blair actually was a mate. And we all remember Tony in the Iraq War, but let's remember Tony, the successful winner of 3 general elections. People just liked him then. They connected with him then. He was a person they could trust. They gave him every 4 years, you can go off and do it again. And Alistair Campbell, which, I don't know if you've read his book or not, but you certainly should, he understood that what people were looking for was a narrative, a story, something that could be engaging. And people started to buy it. Gordon Brown thought he could do it when he took over. I'm Alistair Campbell. I'm Robert Duvall. What was he called? Tom Hampson in The Godfather? He wasn't one of the family. He wasn't on the mafia C-suite. But they trusted him, and they liked him, and they used him. And whether it's personal or political, professional or private, the chief communications officer is the person they turn to if you've built that rapport and relationship. And of course, if you can translate that personal relationship I'm banging on about to a company relationship, it works the same way. So park thoughts of Tony Blair and think of Nice Innocent. It's sweet. Actually, they've taken the precaution of making a good product. So it's delicious. It's not too expensive. But the whole branding around it is positive and warm. It's a friend. I like that. Now, I just tried to open a bottle of water during the break. I don't know if any else of you tried it. Will we be investing in that water company? It's ludicrous. We don't think about it again, but if it came up in conversation, we'd probably say, dreadful, stupid, idiotic. Did anybody road test that water? Nobody can get the lid off it. Not a problem with innocent. We smile when we say innocent. Even the branding is nice. Innocent. You know, you've got the energy drink side of the market, which is full of testosterone and skateboarders and people falling out of aeroplanes with funny hats on. But innocent, sweet. It's a kid, it's a puppy, it's a dachshund. Oh, innocent. And we like it, and it works. And it's just been sold to some megacorp for huge amounts of money. They like that upstairs. It makes money. So I didn't buy the scientific stuff. I thought, here are these black box people wandering around, desperate to be scientists when we're really artists. We are in the art business. We have intuition. We have feelings. Communications people are born, not made. You can go off to university and learn communications. You can go off to university and learn to be a human. It'll have the same effect. You learn communications. You understand communications. You feel communications. You're a people person. So I thought these scientists, whose language I didn't understand, you know, with their black box voodoo, yeah, whatever. You know, I don't believe it changes things. And then I had a new boss. to misquote Mark Twain, it's amazing how a new boss can make you focus your mind. My old boss got me. He recruited me. I worked for him for 9 years. We were a couple. He looked at me fondly, and I went warm when he came into a room. And then they went off to Switzerland and bought me for my special delectation a Thunderbird. And that's my Thunderbird. He's called Brains. Any of you familiar with the very old British television programme, Thunderbirds? Well, Ton Buchner, he's a Dutchman, but he's lived in Switzerland for 25 years. He works for Sulzer, the pump company. If you're interested in some pumping, I will give you their introduction. He's an engineer. He measures stuff. He doesn't do empathy. Hans Wyers, his predecessor, was Minister of Economic Affairs, the most popular politician in the Netherlands for a long time. Hans got people. He gets bottom lines. He understood we bought ICI. He just can't understand why we don't make any money. We had the strategy. Where's the operations? So I'm pragmatic. and I have that great persuader, I have a mortgage. So I thought, well, Johnny, you're 50 and you're fat and you're grey. Give yourself some space to find a new job if you need to. Do it again. So what do when you're in trouble? You phone up a consultant. And luckily, after a few missteps and accidents along the way, I came across Sandra Macleod, who I'd known for some years, and Echo Research. She came and her team and pitched. And I don't know if she did it for me or she does this all the time, but I got it. I got its simplicity. I got its straightforwardness. I got that actually I could give some kind of measurement to what I'm doing without in any way undermining my basic premise that we're in the human art business. This might give some clarity that when my boss, who's all talking about smart, which I always thought was me at church on Sunday, smart, measuring, good, KPIs, isn't that something to do with Kentucky Fried Chicken or something? I don't know. Sandra took me by the paw and brought me to the sunny uplands of measurement where engineers and private equity folk understand. And I actually learned some quite interesting stuff. I don't think this was earth-shattering. It was good to know that the corporate, most people understand our product brands, but the corporate was liked for those who knew it. But the real kicker came here. And this is when I started to become a bit of a new seeker. I really was a believer. We discovered that 59% of consumers were more likely to purchase our products if they knew that we made it. So in the UK, if you buy Dulux, you're more likely to buy it if you knew it came from us. We are the #1 company on the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, chemical companies. We have a fantastic sustainability reputation. When people know about that, it impacts on their consumer purchasing. That is gold. Better still, 2/3, and we're quite a B2B company as well, 2/3 of business customers are more likely to purchase if they know. Now, when we use these two statistics with the CEO privately, for the first time, he got from, yeah, you're the guy who manages it and we don't get into trouble, into, wow, this is good stuff. I can use this stuff. This is the kind of thing that they get. Suddenly, we probably had more of a license to operate. Don't forget, and I was being jocular, but I mean it, when you have a new CEO who comes from a completely different background and they don't know who you are, so you have no capital, all those great things you did weren't there and don't care, you need stuff to get their attention. This, for me, is a baseline which I can build confidence in my profession, in my group, in my people, in myself. We also got some nice little roadmaps here. We're on the right tracks. We need to do more about that sustainability reputation. We need to do more about innovation, and we need to get more spokespeople and ambassadors. I think somebody else mentioned about using their ambassadors. This is good stuff because it's right. Budgets are being cut. And if we can tailor more to what they're looking for, and of course we'll measure next year, then I have a real license to operate in the way that he understands. And of course, if you look at the Obama presidential campaigns, the last one and the one before that, we've all got to study this. Because all what they did is, I think, aligning with what I'm trying to say is, they just went for the people that they knew would be engaged by their message. Great swathes of the United States they ignored. But they got, one example I was told about, an 80-year-old veteran to phone up 80-something veterans. And he would say, hi, I'm George, I'm a veteran, I'm supporting President Obama. Now that was just one small little pinpoint across a whole range of activities. They understood their demographics, they understood their anthropology, they understood their economics, they understood the arguments, and they individually targeted, and they left the Republicans sitting down, worrying fighting the last battle, in fact. The Republicans put a lot of money into the last presidential election. They weren't fighting this one. And Team Obama put together such a fantastic campaign operation with such fantastic data. Well, they won the election. And if you followed it like I did, right up until the election, everybody was telling us that Obama might not win. There was a general consensus because they were using that traditional measurement, NOP opinion polls, because people weren't quite willing to admit the truth. Maybe you were some white country club upper middle class guy who didn't want to admit you were voting for Obama. So you lied, because people do, I've noticed. But they really dug into real statistics. Consumers are more likely to buy us if AkzoNobel owns them, if they know that AkzoNobel owns it. That is marvelous. Instead of me spending a fortune on a marketing and advertising campaign, I will then find out who those consumers are. Are they, DIY experts? Are they people who work in the trade? What's going on? Let me dig into that data. And let me target my limited resources to them. You are seeing President Obama. Yes, we can. Eventually. So am I a measurement evangelist? Well, sometimes, and sometimes not. My boss, you might have realized at some point, he got very ill. He had a bit of a stress moment. He was new and he ran at it too hard and he got ill. And this got a lot of publicity around the world in the Financial Times, Wall Street Journal. Basically, it was top news that a Fortune 500 CEO, after such a short time, became ill. Luckily, we were able to turn the story around and make it about general C-suite illness. And there are a significant amount, you'd be amazed, Lloyds Bank, British Gas, Centrica, Volvo in Sweden. This happens a lot nowadays, the pressure is just too much on a lot of these folk. But we made it a human story, and we made it honest. We told them exactly what was going on. Some resistance, I have to tell you, internally. People saying, you don't have to tell anybody that he's ill. We can just say serious flu or something. Well, that's just not acceptable. Good communications people are responsive. They tell everything they possibly can. Everything. Now, I had some very significant fights with very significant people. Luckily, I won, and now they go around boasting how open they were. That's the way it goes. We were open, and we got credit for it. And we kept it human. My then head of media and spokesman, he's a Dutchman, and he used a phrase when he was talking to the media, too much hay on his pitchfork. You don't know that at Harvard. Too much hay on your pitchfork. Well, of course, people were fascinated by this because he did sum up in a very simple way what had gone wrong, what the problem was. And then the Financial Times and the fantastic Lucy Kellaway, who writes on the management pages, please read Lucy Kellaway. It's a breath of fresh air and reality every week. They started to run with this, and we got credit for being open and simple and straightforward and responsive. So what is my conclusion, really? And I want to leave a little time for questions, and I've got Sandra here. Measurement, when done appropriately and correctly, framed in the right way, that shows clear deliverables that you can enact on, that you can make real and operational, is excellent. It should be part of your communications mix. But I think that's, and I'm drifting towards you, I think that's probably 35 to 38% of our job. The rest of it is still that art, it is still that find out what people are doing, go to as many events like this, talk to as many people, read as much as you can, travel around as much as you can, listen to the employees, listen to people out there, find out what the world is thinking, and then, good God, act like a human. Because the corporation is no different from the human, and if we behave honest, open, decent, authentic, then people will like the corporation. If you don't, you can spend all the money you like on measurement and advertising and marketing. It doesn't matter jack. And by the way, we'll never get on the C-suite anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, John. John's going to be joined on stage by Sandra Macleod. Interestingly, one of the founders of AMEC, and Sandra is the chief executive of Echo Research.
Ask her the questions.
That's why I'm the prop.
You're the prop.
I'm the prop.
So I'm looking for the first question.
Thank you. Helen Dunberg, Retriever, Stockholm. I'm curious about, you were talking about the communication, it's human art. So I'm really curious about, Sandra, how you managed to kind of close the gap to make it more human. for your clients?
That's a great question, thank you. I think a lot of times, and I think we heard a lot this morning about closing the gap and addressing the gap, and a lot of things, management get gap analyses. And one of the things that we started working with John and his team is it was a very, very, very close partnership. And we really got to know his team, where they were coming from, what they'd done before, what had worked, what hadn't worked. And those are real lessons to say, well, actually, you know, they'd done some huge things, but hadn't quite stuck. You then say, well, why? What had gone on behind it? And I think a lot of things certainly with Akzo and what we see with other clients is the importance of tailoring it. You know, why are you doing this now? How is this going to help you? What's important to you? You know, if we're going to do research, let's make sure that it's really tailored on the things that are material to the business. And then when we brought it all together is actually focusing on the things that fundamentally will drive the bottom line, to say actually communications is not just a nice to do, it is a must do. And giving that, the lack of calling it a C-suite, but giving the management team just that, this stuff is material, but with very simple evidence. And if they want it as engineers, and we were warned they're engineers and they're number freaks and so on, saying actually if you want the rigor, what's behind it, how we did it, here's the deck. You can get into anything, the validity, the robustness is there, but let's talk about the outcomes and what that means for you as a business. And actually that was a very comfortable conversation. When we presented to the board, we were warned it was going to be possibly lumpy, bumpy. They might get angry or take exception to certain things, and they were fantastic. They just said, "Gosh, isn't this interesting? We had no idea. So doesn't this mean we have to engage our people more?" I'm going, "Yes." Doesn't it mean that And you get them on that journey, but they owned the results. I mean, we had them there, but they owned that, and I think that's really important. But it's giving them the evidence and giving them the power of that confidence to say, we've done this and we know why we've done it. And by the way, yes, we can go back in about a year's time and say, have we moved those needles among the people that matter? So it's all about tailoring it and making it real for the business. It's not just a one-size-fits-all to any organization. It's really thinking through what's going to matter in that instance, which is very powerful. And actually a delight, absolute delight working together. We survived. No, it was a real partnership with our team and with the AkzoNobel team. And I think they worked probably as hard as we did in making it happen.
Time for one more question. Asim, just wait a moment for the microphone.
Hi, my name is Asim Sood. I'm from Impact Research India. John, thank you for a wonderful presentation. My question is about digital and how the board expectations have changed. Are you being asked different questions now? You've already traveled, covered a great journey. After digital, is the board asking you different questions?
Funnily enough, no. I think digital, there are books to be written about this, that it's a classic case of a new technology that enables people to communicate in an easier and better way. But does it meant a step change in the way things really happen? On the whole, no. In crisis communication, yes, of course. Nowadays, you can't do that press release that afternoon because somebody's filmed it and tagged it and sent it off as soon as it happens. But in general, I strongly believe that the more the offering, the less important it's become. When there is so much, it's much more important to focus on those digital techniques and technologies that get to the people that you have defined that you need. Find out what they want. So one of my stakeholder groups is students in Brazil. We're the #1 paint company in Brazil. Our reputation amongst them, our recruitment levels were not high enough. Once we've done our market research about the results of that, then we'll start tailoring our digital policy to reach them. But has that come from upstairs? No, because I do think they're a generation still, perhaps realistically and sensibly, see this is a tool, but this is not a huge, game-changing, massive difference in the way people behave. People behave the same, they just have something else to use. And we're noticing that in Twitter and all these latest offerings, they tend to last a year. I read in the paper yesterday that the one big games company that had an app that had rocketed to huge success, a gaming app, last year, and it had been sold for something like $600 million to one of the big boys, it's over. because kids are humans by 15. Do you remember being a teenager? Ugh. So for us, AkzoNobel, to construct our strategy on a feeling of digital, which is really based on teenage hormones, let's be very careful out there, as they used to say in Hill Street Blues. Yeah.
I'm going to have to call it
Yeah,
there
go.
for time. John, Sandra, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.